From PC Gamer, Ubisoft CEO says Star Wars Outlaws tanked because people are bored of Star Wars. Quote, the brand it belonged to was in a bit of choppy waters. This is by Richard Stanton right here, published yesterday. Correct he is. Yeah, this one's pretty brutal, folks. Let's go ahead and get right into it right now. Ubisoft recently held its annual shareholders meeting, an event at which CEO Yves Guillemot, I do believe, has to take questions about the publisher's successes and failures. One of the latter is perhaps surprising because Star Wars Outlaws is a pretty decent Star Wars game and has benefited from considerable post-launch support. It just didn't do the numbers. One shareholder asked straight up whether this failure was one of marketing. The question, being live translated from French during the meeting, was phrased thusly: what have you learned from the failure of Outlaws in terms of sales? And have you learned anything new in terms of pricing and in terms of marketing? Guillemot says this: we didn't reach our sales targets. Before getting onto the real reasons, quote, the game suffered from a number of items. First, it suffered from the fact that it was released at a time when the brand that it belonged to was in a bit of choppy waters. Ouch. And This is from Rich here, from the author. Star Wars fatigue feels like it's been a thing ever since Disney acquired the brand and began blasting out forgettable shows. Yes, and some good ones, at a rate of knots. Whoa! That's really something. It also notes that Guillemot referenced Acolyte and its cancellation, and we know how that didn't fare that well. But I want to go ahead and take this in an even different direction, because at the same time that we have the CEO of Ubisoft, of all people, saying that the Star Wars brand isn't doing all that well, we have this story. Now, we covered this on That Park Place earlier, but you can see right here, Disney's Hollywood Studios faces another overhaul, Animation Courtyard, to become Walt Disney Studios and bring back the magic of Disney animation. And you might be asking, why am I bringing this into this whole thing? Well, take a look, folks. This attraction at Disney's Hollywood Studios is replacing a Star Wars experience that's been there for quite some time. In fact, I do believe it's been there from 2015, or I want to say thereabouts right there, the Star Wars launch bay. Now this, if you aren't previously aware, this was a preview center, not just for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, folks, but it had a lot of props and displays for the upcoming Star Wars series of movies, that being largely The Last Jedi, and I do believe there might have been Rise of Skywalker stuff in there, but there was also Force Awakens stuff and all of that. I think they had, at Disneyland, I think they had Rey's speeder on display. But all of that is going away in order to make way for animation. So at the same time that you have a CEO who is a partner in this brand saying, this brand isn't doing that well, Disney themselves is also getting rid of their presence, that being Star Wars, in a park that features Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Guys, your reactions to this story?
It's like if Radio Shack was throwing shade at Toys R Us. Like, check your privilege, homie. Like, they're not. That's Ubisoft literally, we covered this on That Game Place last Saturday. Ubisoft, their CEO literally just appointed his son, who was in an NFT scam for one of like their subsidiaries or something. This Ubisoft is one of the poster boys of the gaming industry for incompetence. Yet they seem to, when it's another company, they lose that blissful ignorance. But let's remember, at the end of the day, Ubisoft is the one that greenlit this project well after we knew that the sequels were going in a more divisive direction that wouldn't be able to get as big of an audience. They were going forward with this, and this is their own grave they dug. And yeah, I mean, it's hypocritical. They definitely are right because of the brand change and all the theme park news. But at the end of the day, like, I wish they could do some self-awareness and some inner spiritual journeys, because my goodness, Ubisoft, everyone else can tell you that.
Yes, indeed. I want to go ahead and give people an idea of what this Star Wars launch bay was all about and how easy it would have been to just change out the displays and keep this in there a little longer. Apparently, they didn't even want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of pieces of concept art. You can see this right here. This is when it debuted.
Star Wars museum is what it was.
Yes, it was. Yeah, today in 2015. So that was December 4th. That would have been December 4th, 2015. That would have been right before, I do believe, Force Awakens actually made its way into theaters, if I'm not mistaken, right there. So it's been there for quite some time, but its displays never got updated. This is the official Disney D23 post right here. And you can see this kind of walk around tour almost. This was for Star Wars Night. This was the Disneyland version. That a lot of those props and so forth are still there. They're just behind mothballs. But the Disney Hollywood Studios version, very similar to this, what you're seeing on screen right now, this from Laughing Place. And I think it was also a meet and greet experience as well, right, for Chewbacca and Darth Vader.
Yes.
Fake Wizard, is that right?
They also had BB-8.
Ah, yes, BB-8.
Yeah, they did. It was a great place to go to get out of the hot weather in the summer and find the nearest bathroom. But like that's what it was for everybody else. But I had fond memories there, just getting to see everything with the family. I didn't know about this. I'm kind of sad about this one.
Yeah. Star Wars is just, I mean, according to Disney, in terms of the list, the hierarchy of franchises, animation trumps Star Wars. Again, this is a brand they bought for $4 billion back in, I want to say 2012, if I'm not mistaken there, Lauren, but perhaps you can correct me on the record there. Lauren, I really want to get your take on this, and Fake Wizard, I'm going to go to you right after. But Lauren, I really want to get you in here. Should Disney have kept Star Wars Launch Bay in the space that it was in, maybe just updating it rather than going with this new attraction? Your thoughts, please.
I hate to say this, but I think this may actually be a positive sign. It may be a sign that Disney is finally starting to face the reality that Star Wars is not a going attraction anymore. They may be starting to face up to that reality and recognizing we may need to get back to our roots. If we're going back to animation, to Disney animation, and we're wanting to put the showcase there, that might indicate that they have less confidence in what's happening with Pixar, that the 3D animated stuff is not working because they put their agenda into it. Maybe this means they're going to start focusing on the classic stuff. If so, that may indicate a pivot. Am I confident they can pull that off? Not with the staff that they have right now, but maybe if they are starting to do some honest self-reflection, maybe it means they're going to try to get back to quality. I think they got an awful lot of personnel replacement that has to happen before they can get there. But at least if the focus is changing, maybe that's an indication that they're going to start trying.
Assassin's Creed Shadows. This is on the stream database right here. You can see the all-time peak players was about 64,000. Okay, and now it's doing what 2,500 players right now. 24-hour peak at 5,000. Okay. Compare that with Star Wars Outlaws, in which the all-time peak was 3,300. That's the difference, folks. That's the difference when it comes to these two properties under the Ubisoft brand right here. And look, people will say, well, it's a first franchise in the series or whatever. It had the Star Wars name on it. Star Wars games used to be the best games of the year by far, not even a question. And we still talk about games. We still talk about X-Wing. We still talk about TIE Fighter. Those games are, 20 years old or something like that. We still talk about them today. Now, Fake Wizard, I know you're dying to get into this conversation. Go ahead, please, sir. Your thoughts on all of this.
Playing off of what you guys said, yeah, that's part of it. What the CEO, Mr. Guillemot, said, that's half the story. The other half is Ubisoft games are clunky disasters now. Or at least the big AAA titles are. They say it was. I realized I felt like I was playing an Assassin's Creed game again with how clunky and boring those games are now. So it's just the same thing with the Star Wars skin. As far as Star Wars, the brand, the launching pad shutting down, I'm a little saddened by that. I like Star Wars museums, and whenever they pop up from time to time, like they pop up in Manhattan, and going to see those, it's really cool.
Yeah,
but I don't. Unfortunately, I'm all out of hope that Lauren has with this brand potentially. Maybe they realize something. I don't think they've learned anything. I want to agree with. I want to be like, yeah, but I just don't have it in me anymore to have any faith in Star Wars coming back, and I wish I did.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that I think that it's going to come back. It's more that I'm saying I think they may be facing up to the reality that it's just dead, and maybe we shouldn't even be trying to push this anymore.
Well, that's
not to mention, let's look at a history with, the Disney company outside of their own direct brand, where they're willing to make the Disney Renaissance happen. Of course, that was a different regime. Like we've seen with obviously smaller brands, like Power Rangers, for example. Disney owned it, and then when they were done with it, they just let it out to die. Like, they let it sell again, and Saban bought it back way back when. Star Wars, like, I don't know if they care enough. And now, of course, Lucasfilm's going to keep trying until the cows come home because they love everything they make. But Iger, I don't know if he's going to put all the initiatives out there just to save this brand if he thinks it's not making him look good no more. I think he'd rather move on to the next hot thing he can buy if he can.
But here's the thing, Nolan, and maybe I'll go back to you, Lauren. Here's the thing. They have these billion-dollar lands at both Disney Studios, at Walt Disney World, and at Disneyland. Disneyland expected to achieve almost 30 million guest attendance figure here for the first time ever, and maybe even surpass Magic Kingdom in terms of visitation. And it was supposed to happen back in 2019. It did not, because Star Wars Galaxy's Edge just wasn't really the land that everybody was hoping it would be. It didn't have its key signature attraction, Rise of Resistance, and that didn't lead to very good things. Lauren, they can't walk away from this in the same way that they could in animation. They kind of have to possibly relaunch this brand, and if they do, what does that mean for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge? What does that mean for their investment here that they paid $4 billion for?
I'm going to ask a counter question.
Please.
Why not? Why can't they just walk away from it? It's like the Colbert thing. You know, if you're spending, what is it, $150 million a year on a show and you're losing $40 million on that investment, how is trying to continue to throw good money after bad, how is that helping? That is the definition of insanity. Now, I have argued before, if they want to try and fix that right now, what they should be doing is stop doing everything you're doing. Just stop it. Stop you producing this. License it to third parties. Let people who care about it do it. You reap the rewards because you're getting the licensing fees and you're not risking your money to produce the content.
I'm with Lauren on this one. I mean, I think they just need to cut their losses where they can before it bleeds any further. We've seen with the Disney company, whether we've had the criticisms from them or not, they are A-okay with filling in, say, Rivers of America. That can't have been a cheap endeavor, you know, with having to literally deal with all the water. Muppets, you know, that probably wasn't too expensive compared to some other theme park ventures, as much as I hate to say it. But I think that if they really want to refocus the brand, that is an ugly eyesore that they have to get rid of. And they've already shown with Launch Bay, they're willing to move on from Star Wars where they want to. As far as licensing it out to third parties go, they have to be smart and remember and have awareness of what the normies, the diehard fans, all of them want, because the audience they've been chasing for very long has just been too slim. How often are you hearing about the Raylos these days on X or whatever? It's so few and far between.
Thank God for that.
Yeah. Well, but it was a mark of enthusiasm, right, Nolan?
Yeah, that. But they had so much faith in this brand. Like, look at the Millennium Falcon, for example. That dish, you know, it's based off the sequels. Everything here is sequels. I go into Star Tours, and I'm always, every time I go into that thing, if I see Kylo Ren show up on Star Tours one more time, I am jumping out of the Millennium Falcon. Like, this thing, they are all for it. And they're getting rid of one of the biggest things with Launch Bay that had a lot of original trilogy stuff. So I think you are going to be seeing some changes. Now, if I was them, I would honestly be taking a look at the Marvel Rivals team, you know, like whatever's left that, you know, hasn't been supposedly laid off or not, and seeing like, hey, you guys clearly had a win there. Let's try see if they can bring some fresh life into Star Wars, because the first step to getting hip with the kids these days is through the video games. So if we can get a renaissance there, you need to start picking competent people. And as we've seen from Ubisoft, they're not. I don't mean that to be mean. They're just not.
Really good. That's a good point, Nolan, with the video games, because the video games was supposed to be an outreach to sustain Star Wars in between the movies, but they've gone studio to studio to studio, and there's constantly problems with the games. Nearly every Star Wars mobile game since Disney bought the property has either failed or been shut down, save for only one. The Fallen Order games, the first one seemed to do all right. The second one launched with tremendous issues. The Battlefront 2 had microtransaction nightmares attached to it that resulted in litigation being brought against EA. Like, it's not good. And the Outlaws problem has just exacerbated that, and people just don't care anymore. It's this company, and I know that those are those are things you license out to these other companies. But the quality control of Lucasfilm, and we know how much they hold the leash on who they license their products to, but they're not doing their job of making sure that the products released are going to be suitable.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.